Schools Work podcast, a podcast for everyone in education. This show is brought to you by the Southern Regional Education Board. At SREB, we believe that every school has the potential to be great. Whatever you do in the school, whatever your job may be, let's talk about things that make schools work.
Hello and welcome to the SREB Making Schools Work podcast. I'm Senior Instructional Coach Daniel Rock, and we are very fortunate today to be joined by two amazing SREB leadership coaches. We have Erin Anderson-Williams and Susan Simpson. Both Erin and Susan have worked with hundreds of leaders across the country, from Florida, North Carolina, all the way to New Mexico, Texas, and many places in between. They have provided innovative and really transformative experiences for leaders based on their deep experience with leadership and really just working with teams. Speaking of teams, today our main topic is going to be how to create great teams in schools. Welcome, Erin and Susan. How are you guys doing today?
Hi, Dan. We're doing great. Glad to be here.
Yes, thank you, Daniel. Excited to be here talking with both of you today.
Are you ready to share about how to create a great team?
Not be more excited about that. Teacher teaming is my thing. You know that's what I enjoy more than anything in the world. And I know that Erin feels very similarly.
Erin, how excited are you to be talking about teaming today?
Absolutely. And not just talking about teams in schools, but also to be able to be here today with two of my favorite team members on the SREB leadership team. It's just a phenomenal time. So I'm ready to get into this conversation.
All right, let's go. Were you guys ever on a sports team?
Yes.
Yes.
What sports did you play, Erin?
I played basketball. I played volleyball. I ran track. I was on a relay team, and I was a long jumper.
Okay.
Why did I not know those things about you, Erin?
They're not necessarily things that I do today, but they are things that I've done in my past that I loved very much.
I was going to say, other than that, you haven't had much experience on any teams. So you did all that. What about you, Susan? Would you ever do sports in school or current?
I was on several dance teams, which don't get me in an argument about whether or not that's a sport. It is. That's a whole nother podcast for another day.
It's a sport. Okay.
But I think in all seriousness, the element that you're talking about is the ability for people to come together, work together under maybe stressful circumstances, lots of different personalities, different abilities, but being able to accomplish something together and feel proud of that. That's what I think of when I think of sports teams. Is you have no choice but to work together.
Right.
Maybe if you're in a solo sport, but even so, I think that's what you're getting at, right?
Yeah. But that's the thing, like some different people have different personalities. So I grew up always playing tennis, and it's really frustrating because I play with people today and they kick my butt. And I'm like, how long have you been playing? And they're like, about a year, just getting used to it. And then they ask me, how long you been playing? And I'm like, since I was 12. But that's another issue. So I think schools have people like me who come in and say, I'm an English teacher. I'm going to teach my English class. That's my job. That's what I'm getting paid for. And leaders come in with a lot of ideas about collaboration and things like that. Erin Anderson-Williams, why do you think having an understanding of building teams is important for schools? Why does it matter when you're got teachers like me who say teaching is like tennis, right? It's a solo gig.
I think the development of teams is so important because the work of teaching and learning is too heavy for one person to carry on their back. And you might be the best player individually in your classroom, but there is a collective result that a school is trying to accomplish for access for all kids to experience high quality teaching and learning. And every student in a school can't come through that one teacher's door and create that result. Also, teams are really important because I could be the best teacher in my classroom with a certain set of skills, but my set of skills do not meet the needs of every single student that comes into my classroom. And so I have to rely on my teammates. I have to rely on other people in the school or on my team to be able to help fill in the gaps where I'm not as strong or where a student that I'm working with needs to be taught from a different angle so that they can also find the result. Bottom line, the work is just too heavy and it's just too hard and the needs are too great for it all to land on one person.
So how would you describe the traits of a high functioning team? Like when you go to a school as a leadership coach and you're visiting a PLC or you're visiting a leadership team or you're visiting different systems, what are some of the key things you look for to take the temperature of the team, the level of implementation of building teams in that school?
Sure. The number one thing that I'm looking for just off the bat is self-awareness of every individual, knowing their roles, their strengths, and their blind. If the individuals on the team, let's just take even a definition that I use sometimes in working with school teams. Definition I like to use is a group of individuals who depend on each other and interact with each other to reach a common goal. So it's a group of individuals. And sometimes we do look at the team, but we have to see the individual people that make up that team to really look at the strength of that team and how they're working together, depending on each other and interacting with each other for the common goal that they've set. So for me, the self-awareness piece is really important. What is my role on the team? Am I the principal? Am I the instructional coach? Am I the English teacher? Am I the English department chair? Am I an assistant? Am I the cafeteria worker? Do I know my role? If I am the cafeteria worker, but I'm operating as the principal, team is probably struggling. Because one, I'm outside of my role and my strength that I've been set on the team to do. And two, I'm also operating outside of my sphere of authority. And so every single role on the team is really important. And the individual in that role has to know what their role brings to the team, but also who they are as a human individual and what they bring to the role. So one of the major things that I'm looking for among whatever role a person is playing in the school is, are you self-aware about your role, who you are in the role, and what you bring to the team?
Are you self-aware? Do you know what your role is? And do you know what you bring to the team? And you're saying principals, I shouldn't say principals because different people are responsible for different types of teams, right? Because sometimes that's a role of an AP is to build this department's team. But that the people know what my role is on this, whatever team I'm on, and what my responsibilities are. And that's clear.
Absolutely. So just to break it down even more, I think I work with a lot of new principal leaders. And depending on how they were developed in understanding the role of a principal in a school, sometimes we know what the role of a principal is by serving under principals. I think I've been every single role in a school at some point in my career.
Right.
And so I can remember thinking when I had mentors that were like, you should really aspire to be a principal, an assistant principal. I was working as a school counselor and I had also worked as an English teacher in different capacities in different schools. But I'm like, I don't want to be an assistant principal. All they do is discipline. And they're like, no, there's more to the assistant principal role than discipline. But from my vantage point, all I ever saw an assistant principal do was the discipline of the school.
Right.
I didn't necessarily see the assistant principal developing teachers. I didn't see them working with small PLCs. I saw them, the ones that were suspending kids when they were breaking the rules. And from me being self-aware and how I'm a people developer, I like working on teams. I like building capacity. I like team sports. I didn't want to be the person that my only role was punishing kids. So I didn't aspire to be an assistant principal for a long time. But it took me learning and expanding my understanding of the role of an assistant principal and how they actually impact the instructional landscape of a school, how they support the work of the head principal who can't carry it all themselves, how they get to have closer interaction with teachers, depending on which teachers they're assigned to support, and how those opportunities for discipline can also help students grow. And it's not always about suspending kids. There are other options, right? So when I'm talking about knowing the role, you have to know the fullness of the role, not just our assumptions about the role, but then also know yourself enough to know where your learning gaps are in order to be really successful in that role and helping the team, the school, to reach its
Right.
common goal.
I hear you talking about the assistant principal, the admin, whoever they are, as a leadership team and defining the roles and being clear and transparent, and also allowing that person to self-define or understand what that is. Because I was thinking of it from the teacher teams and you're thinking it from the leadership teams. But if I'm a school leader, it's like I need to be thoughtful about that leadership team as a model for other teams in the school. Because that's the one that I am in control of and that I have the immediate responsibility for communicating to.
And I agree, but I also think highly effective team dynamics apply to every single team, regardless of the role. So for example, if I'm on a teacher team, let's say I'm on the English department content team, I may not be the department chair, but I still have to know the strengths that I bring as an English teacher to the team, because when we're in PLC, my team is depending on me to bring something and to take something away, because our data collectively is all of us, right? All of the English teachers have to depend on each other and interact to reach the common goal of growth of our student learning in English. So if I am not the department chair and there's clearly defined roles and responsibilities of the department chair, but I'm acting in that and crossing over that, and I might be causing confusion in the school. Or if I don't think I'm important to the team because I'm not the leader of the team, I'm also not positively contributing to the school. So I really think that team effectiveness, regardless of whether it's administrators to other administrators, like the team is administrative, or the team is just teachers, or the team is a school leadership team that's representative of admin and teachers and students and parents and community members. Everyone has to know their role and they have to be self-aware about what they bring and what their role is on the team in order for us to leverage the strength of everybody that's on it.
Susan, I want to ask you that question I asked her about. What do you look for when you are trying to understand how school teams are working together and whether there's a high level, true collaboration, ownership, and the word I'm looking for is collective efficacy among the folks at a school? I'm just wondering if there's some indicators that someone at a school might reflect on.
I like that question. And Erin answered it so well.
Yeah, as she's known to do.
So I do want to get back to that. But while it's on my mind, I want to shift that just a bit. Because so often in my experience with schools, I don't see what Erin is describing, right? Like they're not there yet. Maybe isn't that well-defined team. And so I think what I've discovered lately is, okay, what is the value in a team that isn't working that well together? And I think that the value in that is giving those teachers a chance to find out how they operate in a group, maybe in a role they've never had before, and trying that on. If they're really good leaders helping put these groups together, they can very intentionally team up teachers with each other for that outcome. For example, I've been working with a principal who is being very intentional about teaming teachers in a way to help them grow and honestly to help retain the teachers, make them feel more a part of something, more a part of their groups, more a part of the school. And so it's a different dynamic when those groups are together because they're learning how they interact with each other. They're learning, oh, I can take on a leadership role where I haven't had one in the past. We're looking at teachers meeting across content areas, across grade levels, which is a very different kind of team, right? It might not be necessarily looking at data to move the school forward. It's a step 2 or 3 or 4 behind that. It's actually trying to help individually grow those teachers.
you describe that team you're just thinking of, this teacher growth team? Like, it sounds like you're describing a group of people collaborating between maybe more veteran and newer teachers to improve both instruction. And is that something you have been working with teachers?
Sure. And I think it goes without saying, or maybe it doesn't, the goal is always more student learning, right? My philosophy is happier teachers, and team playing teachers set the foundation for more student learning everywhere. So I'm operating from that premise.
Yeah.
But yes, I've seen teaming that doesn't look like it's working, but it is. And so if a leader or a group of teachers is willing to engage in that, then I think ultimately what you can end up with is what Erin's talking about, right? Where people discover their strengths, and then they're better able to work on one of those teams that is specific for a certain type of leadership or a certain type of outcome. So maybe a more organic team is what I'm referring to.
An organic team, so not something where the principal said, you are going to meet on Tuesdays, but you're talking about a group of teachers who come together and say, we want to solve or we want to address these problems.
Now that's interesting. Okay. And tell me what you think about this, Erin. In a perfect world, teachers would, of their own accord, assemble in
Avengers-like?
Would assemble, yes, Avengers level into these groups and do fabulous things. But the reality is not the reality. The reality is, in most cases, there needs to be some type of outside leadership that says, hey, let's put this team together. Let's meet. Let's do this. Because teachers are too busy, right? It's hard to say, hey, I'm just going to carve out some time and go start this team over here. So I think, what Erin said earlier, that leadership piece, that person needs to know what they're doing when they're putting a team together and think about what's the intent of me putting this team together? Once the team is together, yes, I think some organic things can happen, but there still has to be that structure or framework that gets it started.
I would add that I think teams happen intentionally and they happen organically.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we want to intentionally design all teams, but we overlook the organic teams that have been formed just from the human leadership of teachers or of people that are seeking growth. Example, even Susan, as you were talking, I'm thinking about a school that I work with, and just by proximity, there are 4 teachers that work in like a quad space in their building. Now, they were not intentionally put there to be a team. They were assigned a classroom to teach, and that's their classroom. But over time, those teachers during hall change and break, they talk to each other because their rooms are right next to each other. And 2 of them both teach the same content. And they're like, man, I'm always doing this by myself. It would be really cool if we would just get together and start talking about content because we might be able to help each other. And voila, you have a natural organic team that started with just individual leadership. That's, I'm doing the same thing you're doing and I want to get better. Are you willing to get better? Let's do it together. Now, principal may not even know that those 2 people are working together, but hopefully through just supervision, walking through, having conversations, that comes to be of knowledge. And then you can build off of that natural organic team that's already happened. There are other places where people are waiting for someone to intentionally put them on a team. And so that kind of goes back to what I was saying about the self-awareness part. I might be brand new. I've never been in a school before. I need somebody to tell me what to do or who to work with. I might be a natural go-getter. I don't know how to do this stuff on my own, and I don't have anybody around me, and I haven't been put on a team. Let me go find a teammate. So I think we need both. We need individuals to reach for opportunities to work with other people because collaboration makes the work lighter. It is very isolating to be in a school in any role doing it by yourself. I spent 10 years as a head principal. There are other principals in the city, but in my building, my role was very isolating. There was no one else in my building doing my role and responsible for everything I was responsible for. And I'm one of those people where I'm like, this work is hard. let me go reach out to another principal that I know that might even be close to doing. Maybe it's another middle school principal or another career academy high school principal when I was working there. I love working in teams. I'm a relational person. I know I don't know everything and I love to grow. And so sometimes I would just reach out. Hey, what do you think about this? This is what I'm doing. How do you feel about this? To get just that additional leverage. But then there were other times that my district supervision put me on a principal team, intentionally someone whose school size was the same as mine or someone who had similar populations that I did or had a similar instructional struggle so that we could collaborate together and grow together. Because again, the work is heavy for one to do on their own. I think we need both the organic and the intentionally designed teams.
And I love that word, lighter. You're so right. I remember as a teacher, the friendships that I formed from proximity, right beside you down the hall. Those were some of the strongest relationships I had. And walking in and just seeing their face and having that small talk or talking about issues, you're right. That made everything more manageable and lighter for the day. Having that.
What do you think are mistakes that schools make when they're trying to build a team, either a team ethos or just high functioning teams, like whether it's in grade level teams? I'm a middle school and my 6th grade team is great. I hear this. My 7th grade team is great. My 8th grade team, no, they're not really. Or the teachers are like, everyone's doing their own thing. We don't really talk. I don't know what Bob is doing over there. I don't know what Susie's doing over there. You guys are teaching the same thing. So that's a little odd to me. So what are some of where does this break down? Where do you see either mistakes or do you see the big pitfalls of mess can happen? Mess is going to happen, but where do you see the big issues pop up?
It's hard to know where to begin there.
I can start.
I'll say number one are mandated teams where no one's on board and no one really understands why or what you're supposed to be doing.
What you're supposed to be doing. That's
right.
A big, if you don't know what you're supposed to be doing. I see
a district says everybody's going to have PLCs 3 days a week. We're going to come monitor those and you better do this. And here's your checklist. The intention is often well-meaning, but without that true understanding of the essence of why we're doing that and what's it supposed to look like, or assuming that people even know how to have that kind of meeting or conversation is an obstacle.
I will say though, the checklist actually would be helpful.
I think it could be.
Yeah.
But it has to be a why behind it.
I noticed a lot of assumptions made about team meetings. This is on Tuesdays, you're going to look at your data and you're going to see what interventions you need to do. So the idea of data literacy and how to collaborate and how to share it, who the roles are, like, I think we can't assume that the teachers know exactly what we want from them to do unless we model it for them and show them what a great team meeting looks like. And I guess someone might be offended and be like, we know what we're doing. Someone else might say, oh, so that's what we're supposed to be doing. So I think that's one place where things fall apart.
Making the assumptions.
Right. Yeah, that people have the same background and understand what you're thinking of. Erin, what are some of as the kids say on the internet, team fails that
team
you
fails.
see? Yeah. hashtag team fails that pop up.
You stole my thunder there with the assumptions because I think assumptions really is the number one. We assume that if you put 4 people on a team, that they automatically know how to be a team, right? Without qualifying what you want them to do together, without exploring the skill set on the team, without some training and some modeling, like it is destined to fail. I don't think there is any sports team out there. And at this point of my life, like I don't spend a lot of time watching professional sports, busy woman, but I don't think there's any sports team that doesn't spend time looking at the skill of the team that they recruit.
Like
Just Joe Blow off the street. Grab him. He'll be good for the team. No, they spend time. They scout.
Apparently, you're not an Atlanta Falcons fan.
Like I said, Daniel, I'm a busy woman. And again, people have thoughts about like, how did that person get on the team? And even that will erode the productivity of a team. If we don't trust why they're there, or we're not clear or transparent about why we picked one or the other, or what we want them to do when they get there. Sometimes teams need things that aren't apparent. I'll give an example, and this is where I feel where teams fail sometimes. If you have 4 people on a team and all 4 people know a lot of information, but they are negative Nancys, negative Nates. They mumble, they grumble, they complain, but they know a lot. When they come together, they may not produce a lot because they're similar, so similar that they're just going to feed that negativity inside of them. But adding a positive, Paul, since I was playing with the names, why not keep at it? Somebody that's a little more upbeat or has a more optimistic outlook to what can be done on the team. Just having that difference on the team automatically sets a dynamic that challenges both the positive and the negative. So we have to work together in a different way than we would in common. One of the best assistant principal teams that I've ever been on was one where the head principal hired 4 drastically different assistant principals, different strengths, different backgrounds, different abilities. And he trusted us for the strength that he brought us to the school for, but he spent a lot of time making sure that the 4 of us knew why we were individually on the team, as an individual and to the team. Hey, this one person is on the team because she can crunch some teacher effect data in her sleep. Like she eats spreadsheets and she can look at these big numbers on these big documents and be like, oh yeah, the teacher effect was this. And she comes with this data that just pours out of her. Whereas the rest of us are like, what? You want me to do what at night? That's not going to happen. And it wasn't beneficial for all 4 of us to know how to do that. But it was highly beneficial for our team to have the data. And we had someone on the team that was excellent at crunching the data. So one beautiful thing she brought to the team was the ability to crunch the data so we all could use it. Others were very knowledgeable about the school district that we lived in. Born and raised, he had worked in multiple schools. He was on several committees for the government. He had knowledge that others didn't have. So if we had a question about something, we could go to him, but he brought it to the team. All of us had a very different dynamic that came and made our team strong because all 4 of us had something different. And that principal told us that he hired us intentionally that way because he wanted to have the greatest strength on the leadership team so that we can move the school in the greatest way. He said, it doesn't make sense to hire everybody that's just like me because I can't do it myself. So I say that to say, being able to recognize strength when it may not necessarily look like strength to you, and to really talk about what do we need in order to achieve this goal that we're trying to do, and to fill the gaps. Either develop it, go look for it, hire for it, or learn about it so that we can grow together.
Do you recommend, either of you, recommend that at the beginning of the year or in the early stages of a team meeting, folks do some of these self-assessment, these personality self-assessments? I've done them all. I've done north, east, southwest, blue, orange, green, yellow. I'm an up, down, sideways, left. I know all of those things. So I always, whenever I get those, I roll my eyes and say that this is like, what does this really tell me? Or how do I know this is an accurate? And I've always believed I'm all of these things, right? I'm not just a left or a right or an up or a down or an orange or a north or a south. That being said, what I'm hearing you say is being aware of sort of your strengths, weaknesses, preferences is probably an important step. What do you got? I'm curious, Susan. I feel like that feels like a very Susan thing to do. What I just described, a self-assessment.
Well, Daniel, we can't all be as well-rounded as you, right?
It's a fact.
Have to accept that and move on.
Yes.
So for the rest of us,
Yeah.
yes, you do know that I have some of my favorite ways of talking about or getting people to self-reflect. I don't think it matters so much which of the little quizzes or tests or protocols or whatever that you use. The value is in the conversation that people have, the reflection they have with themselves first, right? And trying to figure it out because they're forced to think about themselves on a deeper level. But then having to describe themselves to someone else or listen to someone else try to describe themselves, that's where the power is, right? So yes, I do think that's important.
So it's the act of reflecting on how I'm coming, what I'm bringing to this group, whether it's a personality test or some questions or a conversation, but what are my strengths? What do I enjoy doing? What do I want to add? What value will I bring? And being clear about that and talking about that is a worthwhile step.
It is. Obviously, like anything else, it can be overdone, right?
Yeah.
But yes, I think that's a valuable piece.
I think it adds to know what strength you bring. It also adds to know what gaps you have on your team. I've used the compass, north, south, east, west, with a team of teachers. I think I had about 75 teachers at that school. And we broke it up into 4 corners. You did the quick assessment and then you went to your primary. You may be all the directions, Dan, but you might lean 1 or 2 more points towards 1 or 2.
I contain multitudes.
See?
But you might lean, you have preferences, you have things that you might feel more comfortable with.
Sure. And it's situational, right? You might, if you're the leader of the team versus the participant on a team, you might lean in a certain way. But we did an activity where we had the teachers go to the corner of the direction that they felt was them the most. And wow, over half of my teacher team were Norths. They were all trying to lead. But we had 3 Souths, which were like that attention to people in detail. And we had a lot of kids in our school. So if everybody's trying to lead and nobody's tending to the details and the needs of the people, we have a skewed environment that we're also trying to create opportunities for teaching and learning in a healthy way for kids. We had to have conversations like, what do we need to do? And not what do we need to change about ourselves, but how can we supplement and bring even community members to come and help fill that gap so that it balances the environment for our students. It was an eye-opening experience, and you never know unless you do those types of quizzes. Again, like Susan said, not overdo it, not spend all of your time just digging down into it, but knowledge is power of what we have and what we need.
Have you ever had to intervene on a toxic team with getting heated?
Yes.
It's a heated rivalry and not like the one on Netflix. Can you guys, either of you, think of any examples or how you have helped a team that is sometimes coming apart or is more, people are feeling stressed out, or I don't want to go to that meeting, or Mrs. Johnson, if I can't be in the same room with her, or just or someone, I don't feel like we're getting anything done in this meeting, in this team. I don't get it. I'm just curious at some of the interventions you've had to make, if either of you have some stories or examples that you have for that, or that you've seen other leaders make in your work with SREB.
I was trying to let Susan go first there because, boy, there's lots of little examples that come to mind.
Let's hear some, Erin, and then we'll go to Susan.
I can remember a team. It was a grade level team that the personalities, it was like Clash of the Titans. They didn't necessarily like each other as human beings. They didn't respect each other just because of some historical things that had happened among team members. There were little small cliques among the team, like these 2 were best friends and always hung out. They talked about the other one. It got through the grapevine. They heard it. And then the team meeting became the place where they hashed out all of their grievances. So in working with that team, one of the first things was to attend and listen, asking some questions to get the team to talk about, not just what was happening, but what was at the root of what was happening. And from there, working with that team to set norms and to set purpose to the team Because sometimes we think just because we work with someone that the goal is to be best friends and hang out on the weekend. When the truth of the matter is some people do come to work for that. And you don't want to discount that. To some people, the social proximity that they have, that's where they find their friends. That's where they find their mates for life. That's where they find community and camaraderie. But when we're hired in a school to do a role, our job is to do what we're hired to do, which is teaching and learning for students. So we had to set up norms for that team and collectively to set a purpose and reset what those meetings were supposed to be, the type of work that was supposed to be done in the meeting, and then even work on ways to communicate when trust was being broken among the team members that was derailing the work. It did not happen overnight. It did not solve the hallway eye rolling, and I don't care what they said in that meeting. I still don't like him. But throughout the year, and then just the commitment to intentionally creating a team for the purpose of working together for the education of the students on that grade level.
Yeah.
A drastic change of the way that team worked together, and we started seeing some results. I cannot say that they all became best friends, but the professional respect and camaraderie definitely improved, and they were able to work together.
I heard you say focus on norms, focus on common purpose, build trust.
Yes.
Those were the key things I heard you talk about. I'm thinking about a teacher I worked with, and we always made fun of her because every meeting would involve her yelling, "I just want to teach." And we just called her, "I just want to teach." That was like her tagline. And that was just, she would say every meeting, and no one wanted to be in a meeting with her. I'm thinking about norms and focus on purpose and having a clear task, how that would have helped. Do you have any war stories of teams falling apart? Or what happened, or what kind of interventions were used or could have been used?
I think one of the most successful ways that I've seen in terms of getting a team to at least start communicating is the use of conversation protocols. It sounds very simple, but so often problems arise from disproportionate speaking, where you have people who take over the meetings, and then you have the ones who sit back refusing to engage for whatever reasons, and then the people in the middle who just take on a role. But if you can use some good conversation protocols, choose one depending on what you're trying to get accomplished in the meeting.
Right.
They're all designed for equity of voice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very difficult to disengage when you're using a protocol unless you just completely opt out and you have to basically say to everyone, "I'm not participating."
Right.
This works really well with students in classrooms too. You'll still have some people who just won't participate, but that's very rare. For the most part, I think teachers are professionals and they do want to do a good job. And these conversation protocols give them an opportunity for a place for their voice, but a place for everybody else's voice to be heard too. If you're not familiar with protocols, that's a whole nother podcast. Like Erin said, you're not going to change adults necessarily. You're not going to change relationships overnight or long-standing drama or feud, but you can at least start to develop that place where they know that this is a safe space where we're going to talk about education. We're going to talk about student learning. We're going to have these norms. Over time, I believe in my heart, as people get to know each other and hear each other's voices, that some of those barriers break down.
Is there anything around team development that we haven't talked about that you think is an important point, anybody in a school to reflect on and to think about moving forward?
We haven't talked a lot about teacher-led teaming. I mean, we've touched on it a bit. Erin talked about those organic teams that form. But I think the original intent of PLCs was really a space for a small group of teachers to come together over something they were really passionate about.
Right.
And have it be an organic growth of that passion, right?
Yeah.
And so I think the whole idea of teachers choosing what they want to team about, we don't devote a lot of time to that. For one, time is very precious and we don't have a lot of it.
Is there anything we haven't discussed that you think is an important point of consideration or thought, reflection?
When I think about teams, oftentimes we lend to focus on the leader of the teams. And the role of the leader is really important, but I think that leadership function works best when it's clear. Also, when the team itself gets to have a say in how the leader functions in the team. When I think of, Susan was talking about teacher-led teams, right? Even what we call that, it is telling us that the teacher-led team is not led by the principal. The principal may be a part of the team, but even though that principal has the role of leading the entire school, on that particular team, the leader is a teacher for a particular reason. And sometimes in our teams, it's really important to know who's on the team and who should lead depending on the outcome.
Right.
Who has the greatest strength? Who has the skill? Dan, you talk a lot about sports. We've done a lot of podcasts together. And I think most of the time you mention a sports team of some sorts, whether it's a college team, whether it's a professional NFL team, whether it's I don't know, never talked much about the tennis teams, but now that I know you like tennis. And when I think about teams, even let's just go football, there's a head coach, there's an offensive coach, there's a defensive coach.
Right.
There are coaches, but they have roles and they help support the skills development, the training, and a particular niche among the big team. So the only other thing I would say is that when we're designing teams, or when teams are being intentionally set for a purpose and a common outcome, that we not be afraid to let someone lead that may not normally be designated the leader.
Right.
They really might have the right skill set to rally a particular group of people to work together, set norms, and to push in a common goal. And it might not always be the principal, the assistant principal, the department head. It really might be a first-year teacher that comes with a unique skill set and that people trust and that people enjoy working with, not necessarily for, but working with. And they might be the right one to be able to lead. Time isn't always the indicator. Experience definitely has its place, but skill set speaks a lot to who should be running the play.
Yeah. You don't want to be Dan Campbell, who's decided he was not only the head coach, but was going to call all the offensive plays. And their offense fell apart after that for Detroit Lions. You don't want to be that guy. That does not look. We have run out of time.
Well, one more thing, because Erin made me think about another topic, which would be the pros and cons of rotating leadership within a team.
How to rotate leadership within a team, and how to, because you start off by talking about roles.
Mm-hmm.
And so what other roles?
And many schools do rotate leadership in their PLCs. And I have seen teams flourish, and I have also watched some people crash and burn. And so it just made me think about the pros and cons around that concept.
Well, there's a lot more to talk about.
So much more.
Thank you both for participating in this. And
thank you,
Erin
Daniel.
Will be joining us for our series of featured presenters, and will be helping us tap into the great minds that will be presenting at our summer conference. So I'm looking forward to that and hearing more from you, Erin Anderson-Williams, and no doubt we will hear from Susan Simpson once again.
Thank you for listening to this episode brought to you by the Southern Regional Education Board. SREB is a nonprofit dedicated to improving education from pre-K all the way to PhD and into the workforce. Visit SREB.org for resources on instructional practices, teacher data, career pathways, and more. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook at SREB-School Improvement and on Twitter/X and Instagram, both at SREB Education. See you next week.